Hey, y'all, thank you for tuning in. The committee is going to come out in a couple hours at 7 o'clock and talk about the 12 teams that they've got projected right now through week 12. I'm going to give you the 12 teams that I have through the 10 or 11 games that have been played this season. I know a lot of you will disagree with these rankings, but these are just my personal beliefs and who I think needs to be where they are. The three things that I really focus on, one is strength of schedule. Obviously, their win-loss record holds a lot of weight as well. And how you're playing right now means a lot. I mean, if you're playing really bad football, I mean, I'm not going to put you toward the top of this list. So, but without further ado, let's talk about the teams that I've got. First team here, obviously, and I'm guaranteed the committee will have them there tonight too. Oregon, they're 11-0. They have played the 43rd hardest schedule. Schedule-wise, it's not been the toughest, but not a cupcake schedule either. They have that win over Ohio State, big victory, and Oregon's looking good. I mean, so far so good for Oregon. They are definitely firmly in the playoffs. I don't see any way they don't make the playoffs. They're firmly entrenched with starting the season at 11-0, so they're the number one team. Number two is Ohio State. I just mentioned them. The only blemish on their record is that loss at Oregon earlier this season, a game in which they come close to winning. Oregon's a tough place to win, and they almost won that game. They also have a win at Penn State, a team that I do have in the 12-team playoff as well. So big victory. Ohio State is a really good team. They're playing pretty good. They beat Northwestern really easily last week. So they're 9-1. They've played the 28th hardest schedule. So Ohio State's been tested, and they've played well through 10 games at 9-1. Number three is Texas. They're 9-1. They've played the 38th hardest schedule. Now, most SEC teams have played really tough schedules. Texas is one of the ones that's not played a very tough schedule so far. Most SEC teams have like a top 20 schedule. Texas is at 38th. They are 9-1, but they don't really have a lot of good wins this season. The only team that they played that was very good and very solid was Georgia, and Georgia whipped them. So it's going to be interesting to see how Texas plays. I think they got Kentucky this week, but then they got to go to A&M. So Texas can definitely drop on this list if they lose that game. But I do have them at third because they only have one loss. Penn State is the team I have at fourth. They've played the 35th hardest schedule so far. They're 9-1. They don't really have any marquee wins. They did go to West Virginia, win that game. That's always a tough place to win. They went to USC, beat them there, but they dropped that game to Ohio State. But Ohio State's a really solid football team, so I have them at fourth. They got a really easy schedule this year. They should finish the regular season undefeated, no doubt, and then they'll be into the playoffs rather easily. But Penn State has to show me that they can win the big game. They definitely failed in that regard by losing to Ohio State at home, but they're still at fourth. The fifth team, this is where I'm going to get a lot of pushback probably from people on here. Georgia, I've got, even with two losses, I've got Georgia all the way at fifth because let's just be honest, Georgia would beat most people in this 12-team playoff. They're 8-2 right now, but they played the number one strength of schedule so far all season. This schedule is just brutal. Georgia has wins at Texas, who was the number one team in the country at the time. They beat the number 7 Tennessee Vols at the time. They've got 2 top 10 wins on their resume. They did lose a close game to Alabama at Alabama in Tuscaloosa. I don't think that loss really hurts them that much. They did lay an egg at Ole Miss, but those are 2 really good teams that they lost to. They don't have any bad losses. Georgia should definitely coast through the rest of this regular season and should be comfortably in the playoffs, in my opinion, and I've got them at 5. Number 6, Miami. 9-1. They have played the 54th hardest schedule so far. Miami's been up and down. Defensively, they're terrible. Offensively, they can put up 50, 60 points a game with Cam Ward at quarterback. They just got, manhandled at Georgia Tech. That's a really bad loss on their record. Miami, I mean, I think they're going to rebound. They should be playing in the ACC championship. We'll see what they do here, but that was a bad loss last weekend, but they still only have one loss. I do expect them to bounce back, but that one loss does hurt them. And at number 7, I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide. They have one of the best resumes, I think, of the group of 12 teams on this list. They've got 3 or 4 ranked wins. They beat Georgia already this year. They went to LSU. And, of course, that win doesn't look as good. LSU's kind of playing worse and worse. They lost at Florida last week, but still going to Death Valley, winning that game, that's a hard thing to do. But they're 8-2 on the year. They have lost to Tennessee and lost to Vanderbilt. That Vanderbilt loss is not great, but Vanderbilt, this is not the Vandy team of old. This is a pretty decent Vanderbilt team, so I don't think they have any really bad losses so far. And they've played the 16th hardest schedule, so played a very tough schedule, 10 games through, and Alabama shouldn't get tripped up. They do have the Auburn game at the end of the year, and Auburn's always tricky. It doesn't really matter what the record is, but I expect Alabama to take care of business in that game, and I expect them to be in the playoffs. Matter of fact, Alabama, though I think the way things are working out, they're going to play in the SEC championship game. Even if they lose that game, I think they're still in. They're not going to punish Alabama for losing in the SEC championship. So I think Alabama's comfortably in so far, and I think they will be the rest of the season. Number 8, BYU. They're 9-1. They played the 53rd hardest schedule in the country so far, 10 games. BYU, they got pretty manhandled against Arizona State. Who did BYU play? Kansas, yes. Kansas, who only has 4 wins on the year, really manhandled BYU. Bad loss for BYU. And when you have the 53rd hardest schedule, you can't really have a lot of bad losses, in my opinion. The good news for BYU is they get Arizona State this week, and Arizona State is ranked 21st. So if they can win that game, that's going to help them a lot, because right now they've not played the hardest schedule, and they have a really bad loss on their record right now with losing that Kansas game. At number 9, Indiana, 10-0. I know a lot of people, and if they're tuning in right now, that are Indiana fans, are probably throwing their shoe at their phone or their TV or whatever at me. We're 10-0. How do you have teams that are 2 losses, 1 loss above us? Well, it's because you played the 106th hardest schedule in the country, and I know you can only control the teams that you've had the ability to go against, and you have done that for the most part. I will say that about Indiana. Everybody that's played Indiana's took care of them rather easily, but it's been a really bad schedule as far as competition. Some really bad teams you've played this year, and that really hurts your strength of schedule. The best team that you've beat is a 5-win Michigan team, and you barely won that game. So now here's the good news. You get to play Ohio State this week. You can show everybody, even if you lose this game, that you're definitely a playoff football team, in my opinion. I think if you keep this game within a couple scores, Indiana's comfortably in the playoffs, even if you do lose that game to Ohio State, which I think you are. But if you can keep it competitive, I think you're in. But if you go in there and you get beat by 40, the committee may kick you out and say you've just not played anybody all year and you're not competitive. You will not be competitive in the playoffs. But I've got you at number 9. Number 10, Ole Miss. This is a team a month ago I'd have called you crazy if I thought you were going to be here at number 10, because you were coming off that loss at LSU. But now you're 8-2. You've played the 29th hardest schedule. You've got a really good win against Georgia, in which you just whipped Georgia too. You do have a really bad loss at home against Kentucky. But I think Ole Miss, especially the way that Ole Miss is playing right now too, Ole Miss, you can make an argument that Ole Miss might be the best team in the 12 teams. I mean, Ole Miss is a team you don't want to play right now. Ole Miss has a really good defensive line that can get after the quarterback, that can stop the run. They've got 2 All-American wide receivers. So I've got Ole Miss at number 10. as of right now. Number 11, Notre Dame, 9-1. They have played the 82nd hardest schedule in the country. I would have Notre Dame higher, but they've got the worst loss of all teams on this when they lost to Northern Illinois. If Notre Dame runs the table, they're definitely going to be in the playoffs. I will say it's crazy because outside of that Northern Illinois game, Notre Dame's played really well. I mean, they've took care of business, looked really good, but you lost to Northern Illinois, and that was definitely the worst loss of any of the teams that I have as the 12 teams in the playoffs so far through 12 weeks. And then number 12 to round out this playoffs, I've got Tennessee, 8-2, played the 18th hardest schedule. A couple good things Tennessee's got going for it is if we do have that win against Alabama, who's a top 10 team. We have played a hard schedule at 18th. That's a really hard schedule. I think the committee is going to take that into effect, being in the SEC and playing a really strong schedule. Now, some things that will hurt Tennessee is you lost to Arkansas, man, and Arkansas is terrible. We lost at Arkansas. If we would have just took care of business, we would not have to have these conversations. We would not be on the bubble, but we did. We lost to Arkansas. There is no shame in losing by 14 to Georgia in a game that was really a lot closer than that, honestly. Tennessee had a chance there to really tie the game up in the fourth quarter, but punted the ball away, but ended up losing that game. But anyway, Tennessee at 12. Tennessee wins out. I think Tennessee should be in, unless something crazy happens. Do have Vanderbilt at the end of the year. Vanderbilt's not an easy out. They're going to definitely be up for that game. Diego Pavia as their quarterback. He can cause issues. Ask Texas, ask Alabama about that. But Tennessee should make the college football playoffs anywhere from the 10 to 12 range. They're going to be going on the road to play somebody in the first round for sure, because they'll barely get in if they do. But anyway, that's my 1 through 12 through 12 weeks of the college football season, and I'll be interested to see what the committee does later today. I'll talk to you guys later. Appreciate you tuning in.